Hey, happy Friday, everyone. Welcome back to our Great Bible Truth series. Today is day 59, the Happy Homecoming. We're going to read select readings from uh, Ezra chapter 1, chapter 3, and also from Nehemiah 1, 2, and 6. I'll have those verses and readings in the description. But what we're going to see here is the people of Israel come back into their homeland. Let me read the four questions ahead of time today, and I'm just going to kind of answer those as we go through our narrative. I think it'll be a little quicker and easier that way. So our first question is, why did Cyrus decide to let the people of Judah return to Jerusalem? 2, why did the people both weep and rejoice when the temple foundation was laid? 3, why was Nehemiah concerned about the city walls? And 4, why do you suppose the three men mentioned in Nehemiah 2 were against Nehemiah helping the Jews? So our story starts with King Cyrus of Persia saying this, that Yahweh's word by the mouth of Jeremiah might be accomplished. Yahweh stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, so that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom, and also put it in writing, saying, Thus says Cyrus, king of Persia, Yahweh, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he has commanded me to build him a house in Jerusalem, which is in Judea. Whoever there is among you of all his people, may his God be with him, and let him go up to Jerusalem, which is in Judea, and build the house of Yahweh, the God of Israel. He is God, which is in Jerusalem. So Cyrus here, why did Cyrus let them go? Well, number one, through the prophet Jeremiah, his heart was stirred. God stirred his heart. Now, what's his motivations? What were his internal motivations? Ultimately, we know God is behind it, right? What were those intrinsic internal motivations? It seems like he thought a lot of himself. Yahweh has given me all the kingdoms of the world, and I'm going to give something back to the Jews since their God is Yahweh. So he probably sees himself in an elevated sense, right? So he might not be a humble, benevolent leader, but Yahweh moved in his heart, and he is doing this probably for his own fame and glory, we could suppose, but there is good that comes from it, right? So the action here is really what matters. God stirs his heart. He sends the Jews back to their homeland and probably sees it as a way to appease them, to make them happy, also to make it seem as though he is so powerful he can grant lands to people. But this is, as God had promised, he's sending them in exile for disobedience to teach them a lesson, but now wants to bring them out of exile, give them their homeland back, and establish them as a people, because he needs to. Doesn't talk about it today, but the plan is that through Israel, the Messiah would come. So King Cyrus says this decree. The people start to go out and rebuild the altar, and as they rebuild the altar and set its foundation, some people begin to rejoice of seeing the temple of God rebuilt. It says that some of the older people, however, wept. Why? Well, they remembered the splendor and the glory of the first temple, which was destroyed because of the sin and disobedience. So some of those who were old enough to remember the first one wept, seeing that the new one just wasn't as good. But for the younger people, they were just ecstatic that they once again had a temple, that they were once again given something of their own, right? Their homeland. And so it says it was hard for the leaders there. It says, many also shouted aloud for joy, so the people could not discern the noise of the shout of joy from the noise of the weeping of the people. And the people shouted with a loud shout, and the noise was heard from afar. So it's kind of a weird thing. Are they cheering? Are they booing? What's going on? And this is the scene. Two different reactions to the same thing. Now, Nehemiah, who's a young leader, or he's under the king, he's a servant here, to the king, but it's not just a servant, but in some capacity, right? And asks if he could go back to not just rebuild the temple, but rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. Now this is important because without city walls, one would be open to attack. So you can go and bring your people back into the land and rebuild the temple and say, here's our homeland, but the walls were destroyed. People could easily march in and destroy it, and you have no defense. And this is important. The fourth question was that in the story about there were certain men here who were there with the Jews who were upset with this. Why? Well, this is why you need the walls rebuilt, because many people didn't like the Jews. Many people probably remember the stories of the Jews coming in and taking over the land. And so, like in any culture or ethnicity or race, there's going to be infighting. And this surely happened, right, in those days, just as it does now. But even more so because the Jews believed this land and that temple and the city was given to them by God. And it probably annoyed people, and then probably other people that wanted the richness of the land. And so Nehemiah really takes charge in getting the men to come together and getting safe travel from the king to go and rebuild the city of Jerusalem. So we start to see God's plan. It looked like it got off track. We have Abraham, and all these blessings are going to come to the people, and they fell into idolatry, and now they're captive, and the temple's destroyed, and God must have lied, right? That's how some people could have saw it. But no, we see God fulfilling his promises, bringing the people back into the land, and God continuing a work that they didn't see coming through a king and through a way they probably did not see coming. But that's the ways of the Lord. They're mysterious. Have a blessed day. We'll see you guys tomorrow.